I mean, the actors are staggering. The guy that plays Gregg
Allman, yeah.
I was sitting kind of in the back because I didn't want to make a big scene, which I ended up making a big scene anyway.
When Cher, the bedazzled goddess of pop, and Gregg Allman, the brooding southern rock icon, tied the knot, jaws collectively hit the floor. To the world, they looked like a cosmic mismatch. To each other, they were a hurricane of passion, beautiful, chaotic, and utterly unstoppable. But every storm leaves its wreckage. Beneath the glittery surface of their whirlwind romance was a darker reality, one filled with shocking secrets, devastating heartbreak, and a battle neither of them could win. Decades later, just before passing at 69, Gregg finally revealed the jaw-dropping truth about their marriage. What really tore them apart? And was there something Cher was desperately trying to keep hidden from the world? Join us as we reveal the answer that's more shocking than anyone expected. A love story no one saw coming. When Cher, the reigning queen of pop and television, first crossed paths with Gregg Allman, the southern rock god, no one could have predicted the whirlwind that would follow. It was 1975, a year of bell-bottoms, disco fever, and apparently one of the most unexpected celebrity pairings in history. If opposites attract, then Cher and Gregg were magnets on steroids. Cher had just stepped out of her iconic partnership with Sonny Bono, the duo that gave us hits like I Got You Babe and a weekly dose of sequins on TV. Newly single, she was ready to step into her next chapter. Gregg, on the other hand, was the epitome of rock and roll rebellion, the soulful frontman of the Allman Brothers Band, whose voice could make you weep into your whiskey. He was raw, rugged, and about as far from Sonny Bono as you could get without crossing state lines. Together, they were like champagne and moonshine, an intoxicating mix that made absolutely no sense on paper, but somehow worked. At least, for a while. The chemistry between them was instant and electric. So much so that within days of meeting, they hit fast forward and got married before anyone could say, "Are you sure about this?" But even at their wedding, there were red flags waving like they were at a NASCAR race. Gregg later admitted he was battling substance misuse at the time, a detail that might have been worth mentioning before exchanging vows. Cher, fresh out of a relationship where she felt stifled, seemed to be trading one set of challenges for another. If Sonny was all structure and control, Gregg was pure chaos, wrapped in denim. But why did Cher dive headfirst into what seemed like a romantic minefield? Was she trying to save him? Or was she simply caught up in the thrill of something new and completely different? The truth might lie somewhere in between. After all, who doesn't love a little danger, especially when it comes with a killer soundtrack? Gregg himself reflected on their early days in an interview. So I woke up one morning and told her, "Look, I've got to tell you something." Now, most people might have run for the hills at that point, but not Cher. Her response? Well, how do you fix that? The couple made an attempt to tackle Gregg's habit together, but as anyone who's seen a rock biopic knows, kicking habits is easier said than done. Despite his struggles, Gregg recalled that Cher was surprisingly supportive when he came clean about his demons. Cher was actually quite elated that I told her the truth, he said. Honesty may have been the best policy, but it wasn't enough to keep their relationship afloat. So what changed? Maybe it was the realization that passion alone can't sustain a relationship. Or perhaps they both recognized that they were better off apart than trying to force something that wasn't meant to be. The honeymoon from hell. They say the honeymoon phase is supposed to be all champagne toasts and blissful mornings. But for Cher and Gregg Allman, it was more like a high-speed car chase with no brakes. The ink on their marriage certificate hadn't even dried before their relationship started to unravel faster than a cheap sweater. Just 9 days in, and the next week, we heard that Cher filed for divorce. So, what went wrong? Gregg Allman, the legendary Southern rock frontman, had a voice like honey and a lifestyle that was, let's just say, less than sweet. What Cher didn't fully grasp before saying "I do" was the extent of Gregg's substance misuse. Turns out, his love affair with substances was a lot more committed than his relationship with reality. After their whirlwind wedding, Gregg would vanish for days on end, lost in a haze of his habits. Meanwhile, Cher was left twiddling her perfectly manicured thumbs, wondering if she'd married a man or Houdini. The abandonment hit hard, and it didn't take long for her patience to run out. 9 days after the "I do," she said, "I don't think so," and filed for divorce. In his memoir, My Cross to Bear, Gregg later admitted to waking up one morning to find that Cher had packed her bags and ghosted him. No note, no teary goodbye, just the cold, hard realization that his habits had driven away one of the most iconic women in the world. It was then that the gravity of his actions finally hit him. Desperate to salvage what remained of their marriage, Gregg did what any self-respecting man would do. He begged. And shockingly, Cher listened. The second chance, nobody saw coming. Now you might be wondering, why on earth would Cher, a woman who could have any man on the planet, or Mars for that matter, decide to stay? Well, according to her memoirs and interviews, it wasn't just Gregg's rugged good looks or his undeniable musical talent. Cher described their connection as intense and magnetic, like two celestial bodies caught in each other's orbit. She genuinely hoped that Gregg could conquer his demons and that their love might be enough to pull him back from the brink. Reality check. Love doesn't always conquer all. Or does it? Despite their best efforts, things didn't improve. Gregg's struggles continued to cast a long shadow over their relationship. Cher tried to stick it out. She really did. But eventually, the weight of it all became too much. She realized that no amount of charm or talent could make up for the emotional toll of being with someone who wasn't ready to change. In the end, Cher walked away for good, proving that even rock stars aren't immune to heartbreak. But if there's one thing we know about Cher, it's that she always bounces back stronger than ever. As for Gregg, he eventually found sobriety later in life, but by then, their love story was just another chapter in the wild saga of rock and roll history. If there's a moral to this story other than maybe don't marry someone after 6 dates, it's this. Love is powerful, but it's not a magic wand. Relationships take work, and sometimes, no matter how much you care about someone, you have to prioritize your own well-being. As for Cher and Gregg, their marriage may have been short-lived, but it gave us a glimpse into the highs and lows of loving someone with immense talent and immense challenges. And while their honeymoon might have been hellish, at least it left us with one heck of a story to tell: the tug-of-war relationship. When it comes to celebrity relationships, few can rival the drama, passion, and sheer unpredictability of Cher and Gregg Allman's love story. Their union was a whirlwind of passion, drama, and musical experiments that left critics scratching their heads and fans clutching their pearls. If love is a battlefield, theirs was a full-blown tug-of-war with lawyers on speed dial. Let's rewind to 1976, when Cher and Gregg's love story was already teetering on the edge of chaos. At that time, Cher had already cemented her status as the goddess of pop, while Gregg Allman was the long-haired, soulful frontman of the Allman Brothers Band. Their worlds couldn't have been more different, Naturally, opposites attract, but in their case, they also combust. And the truth is, substance abuse wasn't the only storm cloud hanging over their relationship. Cher's ex-husband and former musical partner, Sonny Bono, came waltzing back into her life in 1976. The two reunited to host the Sonny and Cher show because apparently the universe wasn't chaotic enough. Unsurprisingly, this didn't sit well with Allman. Feeling sidelined, he decided to lawyer up and file for divorce. But Cher revealed she was pregnant with their son, Elijah Blue Allman. And just like that, the divorce papers were tossed aside. Allman took her back, and the couple decided to give marriage another shot. But it didn't exactly go smoothly. For the next few years, their relationship resembled a particularly intense theme park ride. One of those roller coasters where you're not sure if you're having fun or just screaming for dear life. When things were good between Cher and Gregg, they were electric. So electric, in fact, that they decided to collaborate musically. The couple merged their musical talents in an ambitious and ultimately ill-fated project, an album titled To the Hard Way. Released under the moniker Allman and Woman, it was meant to be a harmonious fusion of Cher's pop prowess and Allman's bluesy southern rock roots. It sounded bold in theory, but turned into a train wreck in practice. Critics didn't just dislike To the Hard Way, they eviscerated it. Rolling Stone went so far as to call it the bottom of the barrel after a long fall for Gregg, and more of the same for Cher. The magazine even slapped it with a brutal 0-star rating, which is basically the music industry equivalent of getting booed off stage while your mic is still on. The public wasn't any kinder. Fans of the Allman Brothers Band weren't thrilled about their rock icon teaming up with a pop diva, while Cher's audience wasn't ready for her detour into southern rock territory. The lack of chemistry between the two artists became a glaring issue, with some reviewers dismissing the album as a vanity project that failed to deliver anything meaningful musically. If the album's failure wasn't bad enough, it also served as a mirror reflecting the cracks in their marriage. The tension between them was palpable both on and off the record. What was supposed to be a creative collaboration ended up amplifying their differences rather than bridging them. Eventually, To the Hard Way flopped harder than a fish out of water, and their relationship wasn't far behind. The pressures of fame, habits, struggles, and their clashing personalities proved too much to overcome. Despite their differences, Cher and Gregg shared one undeniable connection: their son, Elijah Blue Allman. For Cher, motherhood was non-negotiable. She was determined to give Elijah the kind of stability that her own childhood had lacked. Unfortunately, stability isn't exactly the word you'd use to describe a household where one parent is an international pop goddess and the other is a rock star battling substance abuse. Looking back, Cher and Gregg's relationship was nothing short of cinematic, filled with love, heartbreak, and enough drama to fuel an entire season of reality TV. While their marriage didn't last, it gave us unforgettable moments and one very forgettable album. And let's be honest, if nothing else, it proved that even icons aren't immune to a little chaos in matters of the heart. What Gregg Allman finally admitted. As rock legend Gregg Allman aged, he began to trade his leather jackets for a bit of introspection. In interviews and his memoir, My Cross to Bear, the Allman Brothers Band frontman didn't just open up about his wild rock and roll days, he also got candid about his tumultuous marriage to Cher and the mistakes that haunted him. Gregg didn't mince words when reflecting on his relationship with Cher. One of his most shocking admissions? He believed their marriage was destined for disaster from day one. Why? His battles with substance misuse made him incapable of loving someone like Cher the way she deserved. I didn't know how to love her while fighting my own demons, he confessed. It's not every day you see a rock star owning up to their emotional unavailability, but Gregg didn't stop there. He also admitted that their worlds were just too different to ever truly mesh. Cher, the queen of glitz and glamour, lived in a world of red carpets and Hollywood soirees. Gregg, on the other hand, thrived in the gritty chaos of life on the road, complete with late-night jam sessions and enough beer to fill a swimming pool. Their personal lives were as turbulent as a hurricane, with Cher growing tired of Gregg's wild antics, and Gregg feeling like he'd been dropped into an alien planet called Beverly Hills. Gregg's discomfort with Cher's Hollywood lifestyle was intense. He once described feeling like a fish out of water in her world, a sentiment that became painfully clear during their time together in Beverly Hills. While Cher dazzled under the spotlight, Gregg was dodging paparazzi like they were linebackers. The constant media attention left him feeling suffocated, and he had zero interest in mingling with Cher's high-profile friends from the entertainment industry. Meanwhile, Cher struggled to adapt to Gregg's rock and roll lifestyle. The late-night jam sessions? Exhausting. The endless parade of roadies and bandmates? Not exactly her scene. Their social circles were so different they might as well have been on separate planets. While Cher was sipping champagne with Hollywood royalty, Gregg was sharing beers with his fellow musicians in some dive bar off the interstate. And then there was the zinger, one comment that still makes people wince. In an interview, Gregg dropped this bombshell. "We had our good times, we had our bad times. We were just different in a whole bunch of ways. I was really glad that she never asked me what I thought of her singing, because I'm sorry, but she's not a very good singer." While some saw it as an unnecessary jab, others chalked it up to Gregg being, well, Gregg, unfiltered to the very end. His most heartbreaking confessions? Losing Cher was one of the biggest mistakes of his life. "I wish I had been a better husband," he admitted years later, reflecting on the relationship that slipped through his fingers. By the time Gregg fully understood what he had lost, it was too late. The wounds from their marriage hadn't healed, not for him, and not for Cher either. While Cher rarely spoke about Gregg publicly, when she did, it was often with a mix of love and exasperation. Their relationship remained a complicated tangle of emotions, even decades after their divorce. But did Cher ever forgive him? Cher's side of the story. First dates. They're either fairy tales or tales you'd rather forget. For Cher and Gregg Allman, their inaugural outing lands squarely in the latter category, complete with a blue Ferrari, a mutual friend's house, and, well, substance. Gregg Allman, the Southern rock legend, was instantly infatuated with Cher. Who wouldn't be? She's Cher. But let's just say his execution of wooing left much to be desired. In his memoir, My Cross to Bear, Allman candidly recounted their first date disaster. Cher drove them to a friend's house, where he promptly disappeared into a bathroom and nodded off after taking some substance. Meanwhile, the superstar was left awkwardly downstairs, probably wondering if she should have just stayed home and alphabetized her record collection. When he finally resurfaced, groggy and dazed, he asked her what she wanted to do next. Her response? A very Cher-esque mic drop. "I want to get the fuck out of here as fast as I can." Cher later summed up the experience in 2 words. Just awful. And yet, somehow, this train wreck of a date wasn't the end of their story. It was just the chaotic beginning. For years, Cher kept her lips sealed about her whirlwind marriage to Allman. Sure, she occasionally praised his musical genius, because let's face it, the man could play, but she rarely unpacked the emotional baggage they carried as a couple. And there was plenty of it. When Cher did open up, her words painted a picture of love tangled in exhaustion. She admitted that she genuinely loved Gregg, but couldn't save him from himself. "I was just exhausted," she once confessed, hinting at the emotional toll of trying to support someone battling substance misuse while juggling her own career and personal life. Imagine being a global icon and trying to play therapist to your troubled husband. Even Cher has her limits. Eventually, she made the tough decision to prioritize herself and their son, Elijah Blue Allman. The marriage ended, but the memories and scars lingered. Fast forward to 2017. Gregg Allman passed away, leaving behind a legacy of soulful music and a complicated history with Cher. Fans braced for her reaction, expecting perhaps a polite acknowledgement or a carefully worded statement. Instead, Cher surprised everyone with a heartfelt tribute. "Words are impossible," she wrote on social media. "But I loved him." Wait, what? After all the drama, heartbreak, and blue Ferrari fiascos, there was still love? Apparently so. Cher even attended Gregg's funeral, proving that while their relationship may have been rocky enough to rival the Grand Canyon, it wasn't devoid of genuine affection. So, did Cher ever truly forgive Gregg? That's the million-dollar question. Maybe forgiveness isn't the right word here. Perhaps it's more about acceptance, acknowledging that their love was messy and imperfect, but real nonetheless. Or maybe Gregg's death served as a bittersweet reminder of what they once had and what they ultimately lost. Thanks for watching, fam. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Before you leave, you should check out the next video that pops up on your screen.